And all I had to do was learn how to manipulate the database, and which I did with colleagues. And I opened it up, and there were 25 indicators of art involvement or so as of 8th grade. Taking lessons outside school, being in the band, orchestra, the chorus, just a variety of things. Taking art courses, taking music courses and that sort of thing in high school. And so I knew I would have the basis for finding kids who were pretty well involved in the arts one way or another. And my first effort looked at what happens between 8th and 12th grade. What goes on for the kids who are heavily involved in the arts all across middle and high school. And that came out in the report Champions of Change that some of you may have seen. It's also kind of recapped in the first chapter of the book. And there were a variety of advantages that came to what I call the high arts kids in this early round of the study. And I focused on poor kids. Because if you just look at involvement in the arts, you're going to find kids highly involved in the arts whose parents are more educated, who have more income, they live in better neighborhoods, they go to schools that offer more arts. And that's not a meaningful comparison. It means something, but it didn't mean anything to me. And so I looked at the poorest quartile, and these were kids whose parents either dropped out of high school or just finished and didn't go any further, typically. And as I said, there were social and academic advantages then that made something of a stir. Look at this, we finally have kind of a large-scale thing that says something about what the arts mean. In the center of it was something that was one of the most, well, we get easily startled, I guess, in academia, but there was a piece that really did startle me, and it looks like this. These are the results for the low socioeconomic status kids, the low-income kids, involved intensively in instrumental music, band, orchestra, lessons, and how they performed in mathematics as of grade 11. Well, it's actually, the test was given in grade 12, and it was up against a grade 11 standard. And the first thing to notice is, and I believe it's the second column from the left, is that out of the whole population tested in their senior year on this math test, only 21% could do 11th grade mathematics, which is sort of something we know. It's one of the problems we see in our international comparisons and so forth. But there you have it, 21% could do up to standard 11th grade mathematics. And the next column to the right is what happens with the low-income kids who are highly involved in instrumental music. And the figure is 33% of those kids could do 11th grade mathematics as of 12th grade. And I liken this to, or I call it, one of the few observations you can find in reported education research where poor kids are doing better. It's hard to find a relationship between a whole sample and a poor subsample where the poor subsample is doing better than the average kid. It's a big difference. And it's suggested, call it unambiguously, and we never say we prove things in this business, but it's a pretty robust finding that the kids involved in instrumental music did better, ultimately, in mathematics, having been involved in music over 5 years. And then a variety of what I'm going to call social effects came out of this era. Again, I'm sort of leading up to the work of the book, which is not too difficult to summarize, although there's some pieces of it that don't stand out at first reading. Drama and theater, empathic response. That sort of thing has been showed in studies. I'm just going to turn sideways to read this a little bit. I did a study of drama and its capacity to increase conflict resolution skills among kids. That was a study of 150 adolescents in Venice, California. Went on for 2 years. Drama is an excellent curriculum for the subject of the drama. So drama is a place to learn about conflict resolution, or it's a place to learn about history, or it's a place to learn about social relations, because it processes them in ways that kids get engaged with. and they can learn about the subject of a drama. Okay, so is it the art? Well, the art provides a good vehicle for structuring lots of learning. Visual art. Kids who gain visual art skills gain beliefs in their own capacities and abilities. They also gain things that are harder to measure, like abilities to visualize things and see things differently. But research doesn't pursue those very much. One study, again out of Project Zero at Harvard, looked at visual art and scientific understanding, because the visual art was about things related to science. And sure enough, the kids who learned more and were more skilled in visual arts and ways of seeing were able to interpret more and learn more from visualizations of scientific phenomena. Ensemble music, and this with dance as well. Dispositions to collaborate. You know, not 100% of all kids all the time. Someone's fighting for the lead and, you know, plotting to destroy the rest of the cast. But there is a strong collaborative component of those kinds of art forms. And we see it, we see kids gaining skills in collaboration. Very important skill for anything going on into life. The visual thinking curriculum, I mentioned that one. Arts-rich school experiences. Dick Deasy and his colleagues at the Arts Education Partnership did a study of high arts schools and what their climates were like and what they were doing for kids and what they were doing for poor kids. There's an element of that in my book I'm going to talk about in a minute. And again, I recently saw a study in drama that was being done at assisted living and senior homes. And these were 8-week programs. The seniors loved them. They flocked to them. There were waiting lists to get into these programs. And the seniors who went through them, you know, writing their own little pieces and enacting them, and they would measure right away, and they would measure a month later and 3 months later. The finding was that the involvement in drama suppressed or delayed cognitive decline. So I'm going right there. And then I got to pause and say, wait a minute, this is just a token, I'm just tossing this out to appease some critics in the audience, that this stuff that I'm looking at, oh, you study visual art? Gee, you learn to do visual art. That's nice. It's not just about self-image and not just about engagement in school, and all of these things. I'm not going to read them, but you know, all of the teaching and learning in the arts goes hand in hand with the things that I'm talking about, and they are important. They are not studied very much, in part because they're very hard to measure. You know, how much did you learn in dance last week or last semester? Well, the way we've done that in studies is we videotape kids at the early part of a program. We'll videotape them again in the later part of the program. We'll set up a little guide for scoring or looking at dance and have a couple of experts look at the videos and tell us some things about what kids were learning. That sort of thing is effective in a way it would never fly as a statewide standardized test in dancing. You just couldn't organize it, it would be too expensive. Okay, so let me get off this piece. Okay, this is the book, some of you have it in your hands. Cover was done by a local artist near me in California, which I love. If you haven't studied the detail in the lower left, it's the combination of dance and drama and music that sits together so nicely. So this was this 12-year survey. There's no place to put this except down on the floor. And I'll get to some of the findings that were described as I was introduced. And so I was looking at doing well, particularly academically, sort of getting on in the milestones of life, education, and onward employment. And the doing well indicators were things like, and these are the differences between the high arts poor kids and the non-arts involved poor kids in the sample. And I won't cite the percentage differences, but you can see they're noticeable, they're statistically significant. In percentage terms, they range from close to 50, from maybe 20 to close to 50%. And you can devise the numbers in the book. But getting a BA or higher, going to college in the first place, getting an associate's degree or higher, ever attending a four-year college, ever attending post-secondary education. And then there's some others that aren't in this particular chart, but it's graduating from four-year colleges. That's about a 40 or 50% advantage for the kids who've been involved in art. And then some of my doing good measures on a sort of a different kind of graphic display. The top line is the kids involved in art. The bottom underneath line is the one for kids not involved in art. And you can see the dimensions that I looked at. Registering to vote, voting in presidential elections, so the political participation as a doing well sort of thing. Attending a play or a concert, voted in any election, and then doing civic community service volunteering. That's a big difference. That's in the vicinity of maybe 13% of kids not involved in art doing community service as of age 26, and something like 24%, almost a fourth of kids who've been involved in the arts actively pursuing community service at age 26, youth volunteer, and then actually doing something in the performing arts. About 10% of the kids highly involved in the arts in high school were still doing something in the performing arts, visual performing arts, as of age 26. And that's something that's worth pursuing a bit in my view. I don't have good data. I don't have data at all to describe what it was they were up to on what sort of basis and that sort of thing. And this database did not have really anything precise about audience participation, except going to concerts. And other than that, no idea what kind of concerts, but maybe that shouldn't matter. You sort of think, oh, wonderful, Strauss, Mozart, oh, the Sex Pistols, I don't know. Sorry if that reference is from an ancient, just revealing my age, okay. All right, another fun thing to work on that I did in this database was you could see differences in schools, what they offered, how many arts classes, music classes, and so forth. And schools differed a lot. Some schools were very rich in what they were able to offer to kids in the way of art stuff. Some schools were barren. And so I did another analysis just along the lines of the ones I had done. I looked at kids who'd gone through arts-rich schools, poor kids again, versus kids who had gone through arts-barren schools. And there were a similar host of differences on that basis. And then I tested one other thing with that. I looked at the kids in the arts-rich schools who didn't involve themselves in art. Just because you're an arts-rich school doesn't mean kids coming through are going to get with those pieces of the program. They did better too. And controlled for income. So there was something about, as Deasy and his colleagues noted in the book called Third Space, which is really good, there's something about schools that are rich in art in the way they organize themselves, how they teach, the assumptions they have about how kids learn. And these things, they're detailed in that chapter in the book. There are some nice features, apart from arts teaching, in schools that are rich in the arts. They use more collaborative instruction. They use more novels in English classes. The teachers are more satisfied with their work. But having said that, I'll tell you one indicator of that comes up, and that was, there was a statement, I'm just glad that the day is over and I can go home.